Welcome to the Cascieri Lectureship in the Humanities. My name is Mahesh Das, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the president of this great institution. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so now the college, for those who are here for the first time, the college was founded in 1889 as a place where everyone interested in architecture and design could convene and be a place of conversations. And that is what we are doing. That is in the spirit of it. And I think there is an echo of it as well. See, that is, it echoes when we say something profound. Right, so it is my pleasure to welcome you to the 32nd, right? 32nd? 33rd, I'm sorry, already 34th, yes, oh my goodness, the time does fly. 34th indeed, 34th annual Dean Arcangelo Cascieri Lectureship in the Humanities, established in 1992 on the occasion of Dean Cascieri's 90th birthday. This lectureship honors a legacy that is as much about humanism as it is about design. So I would like to point us all to Dean Cascieri, who is back there watching and being part of this whole thing. And this is a room named after the Dean, and so that is the context and significance of this. What began as a celebration of one remarkable educator's impact has grown into one of the most cherished traditions, a platform where architecture meets philosophy, design meets society, and imagination meets responsibility. It is a space for cross-disciplinary dialogue that pushes us to think more broadly about how design can shape our shared future. Tonight's speaker needs no introduction to the BAC community, and that's because she was a recipient of the honorary doctorate from the BAC last year at the commencement, 2024. How many of you were at 2024 commencement? There we go, quite a few of you. So you remember very well. And she is one of the most compelling voices in architecture today, really a visionary, humanist, and provocateur. She is redefining, I think, the role and how we think about and relate to architecture in our time. And by the way, tomorrow she's going to be speaking at the Museum of Fine Arts as well. So there is a concerted effort to really bring this perspective and her voice and her work to Boston, which is very relevant to continue all the discussions we've been having throughout the day. And so we are very excited to bring her. And by the way, she teaches at Yale in spring semester. So she came here, and tomorrow morning she's going to go back and then come back in the evening. So she's shuttling between two top-ranked institutions. Yeah, wait for this. 8th-ranked institution called the Boston Architectural College, and the 9th-ranked institution called Yale School of Architecture. There you have it. So she founded her Mexico City-based firm in 2004. And over the last 2 decades has shaped a distinctive and globally resonant approach to design. Her projects range from major public buildings to social housing, and from master plans to intimate homes, each informed by deep engagement with site, climate, community, culture, and making. She is perhaps best known for refusing the clean polish of computer renderings in favor of collages, layered, expressive, and radically human. And I'm a huge fan of collages as well, because that's a method I used to do and I do continuously. So, and I call ourselves Boston Architectural Collage, right? Because we are an institution like that. So I think the method of this, that's why it resonates so well with what Tatiana brings to the table. So as in the gallery, as we just saw, the Sea of Cortez Research Center, for instance, conceived not as a fortress against the elements, but as a structure that evolves with nature over thousands, indeed millions of years. It is this way of thinking, fluid, intuitive, and rooted in respect for both people and place as an ecosystem in symbiosis with the social and cultural systems, that defines her work. And now, beyond the built work, Tatiana is a dedicated educator, as I just mentioned. She holds teaching positions at the distinguished universities, Yale, Harvard, BAC. Maybe is the next, is what we are hoping, that she will come and teach here as well. We will make sure that'll happen. Right? And as a person, she is very generous, thoughtful, and deeply committed to the belief that architecture can and must serve the public good. We are honored to have her with us. Please give her the BSc welcome, Tatiana Bilbao.
Thank you so much, Mahesh, for this beautiful introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Really, it's an honor for me to share my work with you, with this community. For me, it's a process of learning, so coming here is to learn from this community, and this means a lot. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure if I start naming and thanking people who have made this day possible, I'm sure I'm going to left out a million of them, because obviously this is a work that it's that to be able to be presented here is done by millions, literally, not only the ones directly there, but there's all sorts of names back there. So I cannot name them all, but I thank everyone that has made these possible. I thought of putting together a lecture which is very much to be addressing the possibility of exchanging a conversation with you students. The majority of you, I know you are or recently graduates, in how we are thinking and how do we apply those processes of thinking in our current processes of work. So a lot of the work that I'm going to show is work in progress, so not finished work. So I am able to extend on those kind of the ethos behind the work and a lot more on the process, and so how we embed those things into the architectural form. Tomorrow, as Mahesh said, that I'm going to do a lecture that will be much more on built projects. So if you want to continue, it's going to be a different lecture, so you can follow on that. Thank you. So I profoundly believe architecture provides a primary form of care. That means that without it, we cannot exist in this planet. Care for our bodies need to be held, and architecture provides a medium for us to be able to inhabit this environment. It's a layer that mediates between us and our environment. For that, I call it a primary form of care. I have seen architecture that way probably since I was born. My father says I had it in my blood. And I started working immediately when I came out of school in the most important basic unit. I thought it was doing that. So that's housing. I started working in the housing authority in Mexico City, understanding how to kind of bring the possibilities of and the tools of architecture to extend to more and to provide the constitutional right. In Mexico, housing is a constitutional right to every citizen. That's what the Constitution says of our country. So when I started working, I started really focusing on the understanding on the domestic environment and how to build possibilities to open more paths for those. And we designed a house that kind of summed a lot of those understandings on how to provide a design strategy that could be built in different parts of the country by different people with different resources, some different resources in terms of material, but also in hand labor and in other, in terrain and all those things, to then provide a possibility to kind of respond. What is a platform for anyone to create their own form of living? And our idea was that a strategy could encompass all those things. So we created a strategy that produced a manual, well, more than a manual, it was a set of codes and elements and possibilities and materials as a form of a book that was able to be interpreted by in my innocent mind, anyone, and to build it. One day we were approached by the government because there was a tornado in the border, in a border city from in the country, which is Acuña. The border city is Del Rio in Texas, and there was a tornado that destroyed 23 houses, and we were asked to rebuild those houses with this design strategy. At the beginning, I was very skeptical. I was like, no, my house is not for that. But then I thought, well, I said that it was for anyone to build it anywhere, so it is also for these. So we should just go for it. And we did. We built those houses with this strategy. We proved many things good for the strategy, but many others not. Understanding that a design strategy can provide those platforms of much more open interpretation and possibilities for people to decide how to build their own houses, how to use them, if they wanted rooms only, kitchens only, no kitchens, one bathroom, 10 rooms, 10 bathrooms, one room. I mean, depending on who and how they live. The problem is that this was definitely not applied as that because the users were not able to build their own houses. But what it proved right is that nevertheless, the frame that we proposed was able to be transformed and exchanged and intervened by the dwellers over time. We have returned to this place over the years, and understanding that that really becomes a platform that creates more possibilities, not endless and not infinite as I thought in the beginning, but more possibilities than a house, the model house that was built in this environment. Also, the other thing is that although we thought that the strategy could apply also to the extended space of domestic realm, which is the public space, also proved limited, no? And I think that that is not only a condition of, and the problem of this project, it's a condition of architecture. Architecture has its limitations, but definitely, if we architects also embed on it certain values, certain ethics, certain codes, the limitations are even greater. So how can we think of architecture with its limitations to become something that it allows more and provides and provokes other things with no limitations? That's a question I don't have answers, but I think that we could. Yeah, I think there's someone in the Zoom that has their mic open. Welcome, their domestic environment, to our lecture, now that we're talking about it. But then I really understood that there are many, many things that we still can do, no? So, and after starting this domestic realm and trying to promote and provoke different possibilities and conversations around it, I understood that there is a profound necessity on questioning exactly that from its core in a more philosophical way. Today, if you ask anyone in the world, especially a kid in Sri Lanka or in North Carolina, to draw their house, the drawing would be very similar as my niece did when she was 4 years old. And probably even not only kids, everybody in the world thinks of a house as this. Nevertheless, this house was designed with three fundamental frictions. One, it was designed as the ideal place to rest, as if work would disappear, work that happens inside the house, which is the most fundamental work we all have to do to exist, which is the reproductive labor, washing, cleaning, sleeping, cooking, being healthy, would disappear. It was built also upon the friction as if there was only one form of social structure, which is the heteropatriarchal family, a mother and a father and two little kids, as if no other forms of coexistence would exist in the planet. Nevertheless, that model of mother, father, and two kids is only 18% of the population on a certain period of time, because also that's not your whole life. If you count that now we are, our average of living is between 80 and 90 years of age, but this condition only happens with maybe 15, 20 years, because kids, even if you continue to have a couple, your kids will grow and then they're gone. So this configuration will not last for your entire life if you are one of those persons, the minority who stay as a couple. And the third is the house as a commodity, because that then eliminates the possibility of it to be a right. It's not only a human right declared by the United Nations in the 40s. In Mexico, it's a constitutional right. And if you see this house, the modern house, its origins are on those three frictions, but it's also designed as a model that serves the production. So it is the supposedly place of rest for the worker, it is the supposedly place of family for the worker, and it is the place of all the savings to go for the worker to keep working. So it's a model that serves the productive society and not the people who live inside. So if the house that we live in today is the house, which I call is a fantasy of the house that we live in today, is the house that serves the city of production, the question for us has become, what is the house that serves the city of care? And I call this lecture Commonalities, a little bit making use of the word in terms of what the things we share here in the public. But I also call it that because I think that the model of the house for the city of production is based and done and designed with the commonalities that we share, with the things that we supposedly share. It's like we do all need to sleep, so we need a bedroom. We do all need to eat, so we do all need a kitchen. We do all need to go to the bathroom. We all need a bathroom or clean ourselves, and we do all need a bathroom. So, and yes, it is true, and that's the model that the moderns also use to build their own houses. But nevertheless, we do all have that in common, but we have zero the same way of doing it. So we do all need to sleep, but we don't all do the same. So how to create a house that really then supports not only different forms of social engagement, not only really understands and promotes the notion that this is the far most important place of work, not only that really holds lives, not money, how can we then also support every human being that has its own way of existing in this planet? Nevertheless, we have common things that share. The way we think is to understand two conditions. The first one is we are individuals and we need to be held as that. We are beings that need our intimate self to hold together, to exist, to have a body, to exist. But we cannot exist if it's not because of the other. So that what is a building that understands our interconnectedness to the other is kind of the way we are thinking on how to create houses right now. And we have been understanding what strategies work and what strategies can be built. In this project, what we did is understanding if we create a structure that holds spaces that are in regular sizes, people can then decide if they do need a kitchen or not. Believe it or not the majority of the people need kitchens, not the majority of people want kitchens, not the majority of people want sleeping rooms or living rooms or both. I mean, or needs or can afford. I mean, there are many, many things that play into role. So if you have a space that has similar rooms with similar sizes, you might be able to exchange them. And when you have kids, then you might duplicate your amount of rooms. But when the kids are out, you might eliminate the amount of rooms. When you have kids, you might duplicate the amount of bathrooms. When you don't have kids, you might want to have a bathtub in the middle of a room. I mean, those conditions are for those who can decide what and how to use a space, because we have the privilege of having space, but also acknowledging the differences between all of us as well. So in this project, which is an adaptive reuse project that has also shared spaces, different types of shared spaces, spaces for creating bathing rituals, but also to share kitchens. It's trying to intervene or these possibilities and or these capacities with architecture as a platform to do that. I'm not gonna specifically stop in this project, but I wanted to share some images on how we're trying to do this. No, so in a moment, a space can be open and shared by the whole community, and the rest, the next 5 years, because the living became different. It's a private space. And this building tries to interact with this condition of a community that is ever changing, because our lives are ever changing, and a community that really can expand, reduce, extend, welcome, or limit who comes in and who comes out. This building has not been built because it's challenging a lot of the construction codes. One of the aspects that I think it's truly important when we think of architecture is also that we tend to think that we cannot design the city, that we don't have that capacity. We tend to think that we don't have the possibility of impacting in how anybody lives. No, people say, no, architecture is not that powerful. Well, I'm one of the persons in the other team. I do think it's hyper powerful. If you think that the city is formed by every single action that is embedded on it, then we are doing architecture by only designing a bench that is put, by doing a table that extends to the public space. We are defining what the city is in this small square meter, but that is how the persons are going to interact. The sum of all those actions, the neighbor actions, the other neighbor actions, is what builds this city. So if we really think about it, every action we're doing is putting a part of the city, and the sum of those actions is determining the city. So for me, it's really important not only to kind of act in one building, but challenge policy with that building. So we might not be able to build it. We have a very good person backing this up. She really wants to move the conversation forward. But if we are, we're going to unlock several codes in the policy of housing in Mexico that will really create even a larger impact than just the lives that this building can impact. And this is the way we are operating, no? Trying to think that even though that doesn't unlock other policies by the fact that it's being done, this can be a possibility for opening paths of other things. In this case, we were called to for a competition in Paris. The city of Paris launched a program very extensive to understand what is Paris of 2030, aligned with the climate kind of lines that France signed and committed to the world. And they launched a competition for understanding what are the buildings for 2030. And we won the competition. We are going to build 3 buildings. The idea is to build buildings that can last for hundreds of years. That's the aim and the normality of the buildings in Paris, but can hold anything. That's a challenge because we don't know what is anything. No? Anything could be something that a building cannot even hold. But this means that the buildings are not programmed. So it's not houses, it's not workshops, it's not artist spaces, it's not offices, it's not shopping places. It's all of the above or none of the above. It depends who uses them when. The spaces are very similar within it, and they have only different kind of relationships toward the exterior. They have different structures, but they can, in theory, be used for many, many things. And this is something that, as I said, we're trying to use one strategy or the other one, depending on the project in which we're working, to try to test what are the possibilities of a space to really become a platform for anyone to inhabit this place and to inhabit it in its own moment, in its own capacity. So trying to extend that into probably a different commission and trying to understand that. In this case, we built a building, well, we designed a building for 150 units that holds 150 units. And the question here is how a building of 150 units can promote, hold, and really build up a community. Well, we said, well, architecture can do a lot of things, but not all, right? And the things it can do is to be a platform that promotes the possibility of a community to be created. Then we don't know if the tenants would be joining the team, but the architecture should be enabling that. So what we did is we said we have to break the understanding of the efficient way of entering your unit. So in this case, you don't have a straightforward elevator that brings you directly to the corridor of 10 doors and brings you into your unit. We have several cores in the building. Of course, there's elevators, but we have different ways of corridors to be related to units, and also of sizes, of exposures, interior and exterior, and they open to some communal spaces or close. And that is the way we are clustering the units inside the building to create these different relationships that then promote conflict. Yes, conflict is a community creator, believe it or not. Promote conflict, but also promote possibilities, no? So that's the thing that they are doing. And in this case, we're also trying to understand if there's a possibility of the spaces with same scales being related to each other, whether they're private or public. And this building is right now under construction. It's in Monterrey, and we don't yet know what is the community and how it's going to take over. I'll tell you in 5 or so years that I'll still be here because Mahesh will invite me back. As I said, we're trying to understand what are the different topics and in which commission. Of course, some of them are need to have much more creativity because they have less resources in every kind. So some of them have much more resources, but also embed the same type of understanding. In this case, it's a building in a very residential area in Mexico City, which is confronted with a park. Nevertheless, this neighborhood, which is hyper privileged, is hyper served, is very beautiful, has a beautiful exposures to the most important urban park of the city, which is Chapultepec, and creates no connection. Actually, it refrains from it. So this building is in front of it, and we thought how to interact with the public space, how to bring the public garden inside, and how to bring the neighbors outside to the public garden. That was our kind of intention here, and also not only the people, also other species. No, so the park ends, and then the bees need to be out, the birds need to stay in the park, the squirrels, please don't put them in our buildings, put a fence and keep them in the park, but we like the park because we see it and it's beautiful, right? Here is the other way around. We're welcoming the squirrels, the bees, the birds, the humans, and the park inside the building, but also the people expelling out. So through the strategy of, for example, including the park in the building, in the ground floor, we carved half of the ground floor down to give even more space for the park to go in. And then from there on, also introduce the park in the middle of the building as well. As I said, this is a commission that is very, very kind of privileged, but also we are trying not to uncode and unravel things and difficult relationships that happen also in these cases. And how to promote and provoke different types of conversation is always a topic in our architecture, regardless of the amount of the budget within it. We are trying to also kind of extend those conversations into understanding that living is a 24-hour job and 365 days a year job, right? So we don't only live in our houses, we live everywhere. So the domestic space for me has become a total different understanding when I thought of that, no? It's like, yes, of course we sleep in a space that might be our private, intimate space, might, for some, not for everybody. Even if you don't believe me, you should ask. But we also live while we work, we also live while we recreate, we also live while we transport ourselves. So our domestic life happens everywhere. And being more specific is how do we then create those transitions and how we possibilitate that domesticity to exist everywhere with its scales, with its relationship, with its differences, of course, but how do we think of it like that? And this project gives us the real opportunity of that. And this is a community center and a first place of arrival in Los Angeles. It's called Xola, and it is like the center for Chicano art. The Boyle Heights, it's a neighborhood. Boyle Heights is the birthplace of Chicano art, and it's the birthplace of a Latino community that really represents itself in this neighborhood in Los Angeles. So the first idea is to create a building that like really promotes the identity of this community, but also that holds the possibility of bringing people into this building to work, to exhibit their art, but also to live. So what is a building that allows this? It's a very slim plot. So we are challenging the understanding also on how to place a unit on it. What are the shared spaces? What are the shared spaces related to the art community that lives there? And then what is the definition of the building? No? What is the understanding of public and private space? What are the scales of intimacy and exposure of the building? And those questions are the ones that are driving this endeavor. But the most interesting thing is that this is the center, or the first building, of an endeavor of many of them, that the idea is to consolidate the people who live here with more opportunities of being housed. And this is houses that are totally subsidized, 100% affordable. They are spaces for rent, but with a lifetime contract with a controlled rent. And the idea is that people that live in Boyle Heights have the opportunity to expand by bringing to the neighborhood or their kids that have grown up, or their family members that are not here, or to just hold of the population that is being expelled from this neighborhood. So this is a foundation embedded in the neighborhood that is able to get an increased density in the lots that they own because of this, and only because of this. So the idea is to understand how to create a system, a construction system, that we are on the way of working on it, to really do spaces that provide platforms for many things to happen. So it is units to sleep, but also it's units to cook, units to do your laundry, units to do your laundry as a community, but also as an individual. It's a very early stages of this part of the project, in which we are aiming to understand what is an affordable construction method in this neighborhood that also could create a possibility of knowledge on ways of building in here and in this part of the country, in order for the community to be able also to build by themselves in the future, no? And many of these strategies that I'm telling you, we have been able to test them, and the people know that we're testing ideas all the time. So don't worry. It's not that I'm testing or experimenting with people living. We are kind of trying to build strategies, and people that we work with and that inhabit our spaces know. They're all, of course, all engaged in doing that in many commissions, no? So in this case, we are in this proposal is, we think, what is a space to inhabit in a very open area in a shore in Mexico. How does a house that lives in the place it is, what are the structures that can hold those protective layers for people to inhabit are, and understanding the house as a place and not as a structure built on the place, no? And for sure not the object on the landscape. And I think that this kind of way of thinking we have really allowed to be thought in many regards, in houses that challenge hierarchy modes because of the space relationships, in houses that also challenge the way it relates to the landscape and the city, or houses that challenge the relationship inside, no? So for example, this one has a kitchen that is mobile, so the kitchen is on wheels, and it can be moved anywhere to kind of promote a different type of gender relationships, but also social relationships on the spaces. We have been kind of complicit with a model that is really not allowing those possibilities and not flexibilities. And when we understand that we have been complicit, reinforcing different values, we have tried to eliminate them. No? So this is a kitchen we built in a house in Najijit, very long time ago, in which we believe, the same as this kitchen, open format kitchen, believed that this was a very good way of making the family being engaged in the labor of cooking. But we very soon proved the contrary, because this only became the display for the people who cook, others watching. Not only that, this kitchen eliminated the possibility of cooking our real food. So as I said before, we do all need to eat, we do all need to sleep, but we don't all do the same, no? And in Mexico, and of course everywhere, food is not only about putting vitamins and proteins in your body. We do, of course, need them to survive, but to really eat and nurture our bodies, we need food that brings history through flavor, through colors, through sharing, through the way it's cooked, through the way it's presented. And in Mexico, we have this as a central form of existing. We understand this very well. And we cook with a lot of flavors that are carried on through history, and that they are very, very spicy. So a kitchen like this prevents any type of Mexican food to being cooked. Regardless of what a stove like that does, you cannot cook a tortilla there or even heat it. Forget about doing a mole. No, you will never do a mole in this kitchen because it will smell your house for the rest of your life. So for sure you would not like to sleep with mole every day in your house, in your head. So you would not cook it. So what is the replication of this model doing is really flattening cultures, eliminating the possibility of them to exist, but to be trespassed, and then therefore to build ourselves and nurture our bodies in full deep. The same as reinforcing values with doing rooms that are larger than others because they need couples to be held. Who decides why do I have the right to decide how you should sleep in a room? You should decide, for sure, but your own way. So eliminating hierarchies on the type and amount of rooms you have is something we really learned the hard way. In 2017, we worked for the reconstruction of the earthquake in Mexico. There was a very big earthquake, 19 of September of 2017, which turned down 500,000 homes. And what we decided is to go into this little town, San Simón el Alto, to help people rebuild their houses. We understood immediately when we arrived that we knew nothing about the way these people inhabited. So we decided to be very careful in only to provide the type of knowledge that we did have, which was, for example, how to use a steel bar and a concrete, which was the reason why the houses failed, and not how they should inhabit. And it was amazing the things we learned, no? The way people design their houses, and the understanding that kitchen is a collective act, and that's happened outside the intimate space because it provokes and promotes flavors and odors and colors and smokes that need to be outside. But also that is collective. It's not done by one single person. I'm not saying that's the ideal and it's non-patriarchal, but it's collective. It's done by and for the community. It's shared. And we learned that there's not one single type of electrodomestic that is able to provide the possibilities of cooking. It's many different types, and that they don't come in standard sizes, and they are not everywhere. They're very different from each other, and they're very able and necessary to exist. So then we thought, okay, what is then a house that allows anyone with this type of cooking, or with a stove, or with an electric platform, to live in it? So we thought of even taking this further. And in this project in Spain, we had no client. I hate the word client. This is why I'm saying this, because I don't think I work for clients. We work with people to create spaces. But the brief said that, no? You can build whatever because you don't have a client to serve. I don't think I have a client to serve in any case. But in this case, we truly didn't know who was going to inhabit it. And we thought, well, this is a correct platform to think. What is then a space that anyone who comes inhabits their own way? So what we did is we eliminated every notion of program. So what we didn't eliminate is what we cannot eliminate, the aesthetic definition of a space, because every construction act of a space is aesthetic act. So how can we eliminate the notions that even determine more how a person inhabits a space? In this case, our way of going forward was to think on a square that has many different aesthetical expressions, that then multiplies itself, and then that replicates in the landscape, that has no program. And then we presented like this the project. They were very happy with it. They say, okay, now we need to submit the plans to the municipality. And this is when the problem started. No, we thought, okay, how are we going to represent this house that has no kitchen, no rooms, no anything, but the municipality needs to know how it's going to be used in order to approve it. So we started to think, okay, plans also determine how people live, no? And it goes to an extent that sometimes people look at the plans, no, of the architect and put the couch the way the architect does. Nevertheless, we sometimes just put it in to understand the scale of the space, not even thinking how it should be used or how the couch should be put in that space. So we thought, well, we need to challenge those plans. So here we started also challenging the way we represent architecture in very deep ways. And in this case, you're not able to see it, but these are butter paper that are able to, they're plans and sections and models at the same time, because they're folded as well. We folded them, and they are and facades, and they're not correspondent to each other. So you like kind of directing many ways of inhabiting a space, and those were approved. But then they asked for images. They say, oh, nice, but we need more images. We like not to say we don't understand a thing, but okay. And when we needed to submit images, we became to another set of problems. Those images are also dictating how the space should be used. So we were not creative enough to understand how to deliver those in quick time. So what we thought to get away with the problem easy was to ask Gonzalo, who was working at that time in the office, Gonzalo, how would you live in this house? Draw your house. So this is Gonzalo's house. This is not the house we designed. We only design platforms, and this is how he would inhabit it. Then it was approved. It's not built. We don't know if it's going to be built, hopefully soon, in a time. It's in Spain, in the border between Catalonia and Teruel. And then we will know how people will inhabit it. At the same time, more or less, we were asked to do another house for a project that I thought it was going to be just a manifesto in Germany. And the brief called for a house for the new ways of life. And that described as being the new ways of life of working and living in the same space. For me, it was very strange because, as I explained before, for me, working and living in the same space is something that happens everywhere, because work that happens inside the house is the most important work that exists. But not only that, if we talk only about productive work, it also has happened in our own domestic spaces since the start of humanity, and it happens till today. I mean, farm is just that. But also in the cities, we work and live in the same space ever. So for me, it's not a new way of living. For me, it's the ways of living. Yes, it's to support, and I thought interpreted in how to support different ways of living. So instead of designing, the brief called for a house which had 2 rooms and a bathroom and a kitchen and a living room and a place to work, we decided instead of those 6 spaces, defined with those words, we decided to use 6 spaces that are defined by the relationship to the exterior, the scale, the proportion, the relationship to the other space. So spaces that promote, in a way, different types of activities, and they are seen differently. We chose 6 of that matrix that we did to think of spaces, because of the 6 spaces that the brief called. And then we decided we described them with works, and we decided to then describe them with collages, with images. And this is the first time we'd use collage as a process of design. We've used collage as a form of representation. We even took the idea of collage as the form of presenting ourselves. We tend to think that because we are a collage, we are an extended collective of people and knowledges to do work. So for me, that also means a collage. We also use collage as a way of representing our work. And to that moment, we even thought that our architecture should be as a collage, as a space that is able to be interpreted by anyone who arrives, because that's a collage, as a place, as a form of space that allows more things to happen, to grow, or to also subtract. And in this case, we were kind of thinking how to use collage as a form of design. So we started using the images to describe the words. It was very difficult, so it proved a good method of working because every voice was included. Sorry that the images are not credited. I know every credit of the images. I'm very sorry that they're not there, but obviously this is also a sum of the work of many, many people. And then when we had these 6 collages done, we thought, okay, now how would we design a house from there? We had very little time till the deadline. So we started, well, how to do a house from here. We first put them all together, and then we sketched them. This is what it came out. And then we said, okay, now what? How from here? We started modeling a house, and we finally arrived to this. I have to say that I was very disappointed because when I saw these, I thought we could have arrived to the same conclusion, to the same definition of a house, starting with the regular form of designing with 2 rooms, a bathroom, a kitchen, a living space, and that's it. But we had to deliver. We delivered. That was it. We presented the work as that. So it's a house that has no determination on program. And then a year after, I thought that was it. A year after, we get a call from a couple in Germany saying, you know, we want to build your house because it exactly tackles the way we live. And I was like, oh, wow. How? Because we don't know how this house should be inhabited. And they started describing how they would live in this house in a completely different way I would imagine. I imagined the most intimate space in the room in between, and they imagined the most public space in that room. So the sense of scale and the condition of a relationship of a space to the other, it doesn't mean the same to all of us. And when I heard that, I thought, well, we did something. It was not so disappointing, the result. This house is currently being built in Germany. This was a photograph in the last fall. I don't have actual photos, sorry. But as soon as it's inhabited, again, I'll be back and show how it is. And this is kind of the ethos that we've been trying to extend to other types of projects. In this case is in St. Louis, Missouri, where we were asked to design there was a whole block of single lots of houses, single houses exposed to the street in St. Louis, Missouri, to be built again. So it was that. Then it was abandoned, and then the houses were torn down. And then we arrived back to understand how to place, again, these 22 houses in this block. And we thought to understand how we could promote a different type of city from the core of the definition of the private house here. And what we did is we understand each of the houses as a single intimate unit that has relationships to the other ones through the different spaces that are interweaved in the master plan. So we did master plan. I also don't like these names, but I fall and fall again with these names, with the idea of the whole block. So the whole block kind of articulates the houses into these open spaces that are both collective, there are private, common, collective, and public, and that they are trying to possibilitate different types of relationships. So the collective spaces are like this one for the whole community, which is a pool, the inner community, of course. Then there is a public park, which is even shared with the neighbors, with anyone, with the city in full, because it's public. Then there are spaces that are smaller for more intimate relationship between the neighbors, but there are also spaces for intimate possibilities for oneself within the exterior, also possibilities of spaces that are shared with different species, a productive garden or a playground for many different types of activities. And what we did is we invited 3 other firms, Moss, Macías Peredo, and Productora, to design each of them one house, and then we design a house that it's been replicated in the 22, so they're multiplied, and our house promotes that idea by kind of turning the second floor into the more private realm. So it turns away to tuck in those activities that can happen there. It opens on the bottom to promote kind of the relationship towards the community. And this way, kind of the stair creates this conjunction between these 2 spaces. These houses, the 22 houses, are being built. 18 of them are up, 14 are inhabited, and the other 4 are being built at the moment. And well, our idea to create kind of this understanding of this block hopefully promotes a different kind of relationship towards the neighborhood. I'm going to skip the rest of, sorry. Oh, well, maybe I just do like this. Ooh. Yeah, sorry. Because I want to arrive to the end. How are we thinking on extending those notions of the relationship between the intimate public-private space towards the exterior is something that we learned from doing this project in Germany, which is a monastery. I'm not going to talk in deep full with this because you're going to hear it tomorrow. Hopefully you're all there. But the idea of the monastery of really kind of understanding itself as a place that holds bodies, physical bodies to exist, is something that has given us clues to understand how to really produce spaces that hold bodies, that need the interconnectedness with the others, to promote a space that really does that, And then we are doing now a church, which is a community church, which then does that, but in a different realm, in a social realm. This is in Monterrey City, I'm also not going to stop that. I'm sorry, because I really want to finish with some other questions. And then thinking, this church is being now starting to be built in front of this university building. So the plot you see there with the parking lot is now being, it's going to be the church. And we did this building before as exactly kind of the extension of the understanding of a domestic space for the students in a campus, in a university campus. So what is the house of the student in this campus? That was our question. It's a building that connects the campus, which was gated, is gated, and disconnected from the city to the city, and that extends the landscape to reach the landscape of the university in a metaphorical way, but also in a physical way with the structures that are being created there. A way to also understand the reach out from the interior to the exterior, from the intimacy to the collectiveness, from the family to the community, from ourselves, our human selves, to also our own ecosystem, which is shared with other species. And that is exactly what the aquarium building does. And that is how we are trying to extend the understanding, sorry that I'm skipping this very fast, of architecture to the, yeah, sorry. I had way too many slides. And understanding how a building becomes a platform for the understanding that we are part of this planet and that we belong to ecosystem that is held in this environment, and how this environment can be a part of our lives is something that we kind of tried to understand for the idealization of this project, which is the Sea of Cortez. What happens here is that we really created a project upon the understanding that we arrived in the year 2289 to a building that was built in the year 2023, and that it was flooded in the year 2100. Then the water receded because it's really placed in near the Sea of Cortez. I'm gonna go back here. This is the site. This is the full site. This is the Sea of Cortez. That's a natural regulated lagoon. So of course the sea is gonna rise. The sea is gonna then recede. And we thought the building was really able to being taken over by every other species that lives around here, and that we came just to open paths for humans to see that life that took over the building that was built really in 2023, and that we arrive, hopefully you come with me in the year 2289 to see how life took over the years and years that this building promoted the possibility of those other species to install themselves within it. And with this, I'm going to close this lecture, and I hope there's still room for some little questions to be asked. Thank you so much.
Good question, so just one. So first of all, I wanted to congratulate you for all the work that you've been doing and for coming to the EC or home. It looks like words are strong in your architectural making process, like the way that you talk about words, like you don't like master plan and you don't like this, you don't like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how that really, because that's not something that we talk about concepts a lot here and the party and things like that, but really you take it quite to another extreme, like, platforms. You don't really think about space the way that most people think of it. So how do you arrive to that, and how does that kind of inform your work?
Thank you for this question. It's really a beautiful question because words are very important. Really, we have to deeply think, and especially right now in this moment, how we use language. I think that that is the way we're able to transmit a lot of things. But for me, also, that is what architecture is. It's a language. Maybe we, the architects, are the one who have the tool, the privilege, the possibility of putting the first sentence in the table to allow that conversation to flow and exist over time through the use of the buildings. So for me, absolutely, language is a tool, and it's a very important tool, so I take it very seriously. So I think that we have to really think very seriously how we use the language, no? And when we use client, what does client means, no? So you're really deciding for that person that pays you to do a space. I mean, do we want that as an architecture? I don't think architecture should be a commodity or should be an object to be sold, So that's why I don't like client, for example. Master plan, who's the master? I mean, we should not think on masters, no? And we should think on plans that are able to evolve and to subsist and exist, because that's what happens with things. You project, you think, you can plan ahead of time. And then when it's built and it happens and exists, and hopefully it changes, it promotes, and then another person, another master comes to steward that process and to extend it and to take it to a different level. And this on and on and on. So I do think that we should be very careful with the use of words, of images, of representations, and how we act and interact, because we are, without thinking of that, we are reinforcing values that we might not pursue, no? So patriarchal, colonial, or capital values that we might not pursue. So we have to be very careful and think very clearly on that. Thank you for that question, very good.
You spoke so eloquently about the culture of Mexico and like influencing a home, right, in terms of cooking outside, making mole outside. And a lot of it is related to the climatic reality of Mexico, right? People, cook outside because they did for generations, right? Well, here in Boston, we live in a very cold climate with a very cold culture, but we have like lots of Venezuelan, Brazilian, Dominican cultures. How would you apply that sort of design thinking to somewhere like an ethnic enclave like East Boston or something that's going through a lot of gentrification?
That's also a very good question. I don't think the same strategies that we use can be applied anywhere. And I think that's one of the conditions, that we have to think that every culture has its own specific forms of existing, and that none of us are able to decipher. I mean, it's very hard to even look at our own place and our own existence and to act there. Forget about anywhere else. So that's why I think that architecture should become a platform for anyone to inhabit it their own way. And that question, I don't have the answer. So I don't have the answer on how you should create architecture here. But I think that there are many ways of possible strategies that you can lay down for people to decide how to, and how with their conditions, with their economy, with their politics, with their weather, with their surroundings, with their social position, with their cultural legacy, and how those interactions should be free to decide to each individual, which is formed then part of a collective, which is complex and impossible to answer. That's the answer to the question. Thank you. Thank you so much.